So we're holding Hilchos Taaruvos, Siman Kuf Vav, Din Ech Mevatlim B'Shishim. How does the actual bittul of Shishim occur? Even though we know how bittul works, this Siman, which is only two seifim, is an interesting Siman because it introduces somewhat of an additional din of Efshel Esoichdai, which we'll discuss a little bit in length. What does it mean? So the bittul b'shishim here really is more of an issue with what has to be calculated. What exactly needs to be taken into consideration when we mean mevatel the iser? Is it the iser habalua itself, or is it the entire piece? Now, we already know from before, and you know this from Basar v'cholov, that there's a machlokes in Hanan. Does Hanan apply to only Basar v'cholov? Does it apply to Shar Yisur? And this is where the differences begin to take shape, because if you hold Hanan b'Shar Isurim, then you always are going to calculate against the entire Chaticha, even though it's a Belia, even though it's not an Isur Machmas Atzmoi, it has an Isur Belua, right? It makes a big difference. There's the issue of Hanan b'Shar Isurim. How do we hold? So that machlokes we already have from before, between the Mechaber and the Ramah, which, by the way, we didn't mention. I'm going to add a little detail that I noticed in the Pre-Chodesh, and that is that the machlokes of Hanan b'Shar Yisur or not is the machlokes Rishonim. It's a big machlokes. Do we say Hanan b'Shar Yisur or not? But Basar b'Cholov, the way it works is that two are heter, and they come together to form a unique issue called Basar b'Cholov. So once something has become also because of Basar b'Cholov, it remains Basar b'Cholov. And when you try to figure out if that piece is going to be batel or not because it fell into another kedera, you have to, of course, figure against the whole piece. The basar that is now balua of cholav. You have to calculate against the whole piece because the whole basar became an avela, even though basar is kosher piece of meat. Once it has absorbed cholav, right, the whole thing has become a new iser. In other words, a new thing, a whole new metzias, let's call it, that it's basar b'cholav. So therefore, it's chaticha nas and nevela. That's what it means. Chaticha, which was kosher, became a nevela, even though the blia is very, very small. When I say small, obviously I mean that there's not enough in the basar itself to be mevatel there. Because if you have enough in the basar to be mevatel the cholav, then obviously it doesn't mean anything. Just because it absorbed milk doesn't render the piece of meat a nevela. It has to be that the basar is not large enough to be mevatel the little bit of cholav. And because of that, it becomes entirely a nevela, even though the basar is bigger than the chalav, right, in volume. Nevertheless, the whole thing becomes a nevela. So the question is, this concept of chaticha nasat nevela, where you're going to need shishin keneged the whole chaticha versus just the iser, just the chalav, does it apply to shar isurim? So many other rishonim hold that yes, the shar isurim there is Hanan. But it looks like the vast majority say that it's the din midirabanan. That which we say Hanan b'Shar Yisurim is also or is applicable is only midirabanan. And that can of course make a difference. If something is on midirabanan, it makes a difference. What I just noticed recently, the Pre-Chodesh brings down, it could be others too, that apparently everybody overlooked a Yerushalmi in Orla. Everybody, even Rabbeinu Ephraim, which is where the Mechaber takes it from, everybody overlooked the Yerushalmi. It can happen, you know, where actually brings down a discussion, of Hanan b'Shar Yisurim, which actually discussed the sugi of what do we say b'Shar Yisurim, and over there they say it's Aser. Wow. The maskana there is that b'Shar Yisurim, and therefore the Pre-Chodesh says, and so do other Rishonim and Acharonim, this is the way we go, you know. This is the way we go. Even though the Mechaber said this is the way we go. And they're very, very, very adamant about it. In other words, it's not just the machlokes. This is the psak. And this is the halacha. Not that it's a suffix.
Because we don't have a Bavli that part. Is that how the
No, because it's not clear how we go.
If the Bavli
obviously
says otherwise, we
right.
would ignore this Yerushalmi.
Right.
Here that we only have the psak of the
Yerushalmi. Yeah, we have an actual
then
psak.
we no longer have any questions. You
right.
can't argue when
that's correct.
There's no Bavli.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Okay.
We're just trying to figure out.
An additional detail. I just noticed that now as I was reviewing the sugya of Hanan.
Now, if Tichadash says that, is that his own opinion? Tichadash?
I didn't have the time.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Yeah, Didn't have the time to go through the whole. As I was reviewing a little bit, that's the importance of Chazara. We review, we find sometimes new things, or we have a new understanding of a concept. So Chazara is very important. By the way, if you ever have a chance and you want to do an in-depth study of the Sugya in Siman Kuf Vav, which deals with Hanan and Efshel Seichta, I recommend the Aruch HaShulchan. In this particular example, I don't recommend that Sefer. They do not do a good job explaining the whole Sugya. So Aruch HaShulchan, sometimes, he's always good. He's an incredible Sefer, but sometimes he really takes apart the whole Sugya. He has his own opinions, of course. He has his own ideas on how to understand a psak or how to understand chilukim. But even before he gets to his opinion, it's a very good sefer if you want the background, the Gemaras. It's always good to go to the Gemara itself and to the Beis Yosef itself. But if you really want a brief overview of the sugya and the basic Rishonim Nechoim, excellent sefer.
Or subsequently go through
Yeah.
over again.
So, but here it makes a difference. He's really, really good because it basically takes apart all the shitas and it does a good job explaining them. So that's the first thing we have to have in mind before we begin the Siman is to review or to recall that point that was discussed before several times, that Hanan b'Shar Surim is a machlokes, and Rabbeinu Ephraim, the Rashba, and the Rosh, and that's how the Mechaber holds, is that we don't say Hanan b'Shar Surim. So therefore, if a piece of meat was bolea in Isur, okay, then if it fell into another pot, and this, of course, this piece is not bottle, in other words, did not have enough to be mevatel the Isur, if it fell into another dera, in that dera you would need shishim keneged. You would not, according to Mechaber, need shishim keneged the whole chaticha, only keneged the Isur, right? If you hold Hanan b'Shar Isurim, you need keneged the whole chaticha. Right. That was the machlokes on Hanan. Then we have another issue to contend with, which appears here, and briefly is mentioned in Basar v'Cholav 2, which is interesting because it appears to be a stira in the Mechaber. So we're going to discuss that. And that's the concept of Efshel Lesochto or not, which is discussed in the Gemara in Chulin, Daf Kuf Ches, I believe. Efshel Lesochto. Something which is a little bit difficult to comprehend, because even though the Gemara discusses, it's not 100% clear if it's the exact same din as Hanan or not. It appears to be, but not according to everybody. And that's where the chilukim begin. Because Efshel Lesochto basically says, in simplistic terms, a piece of meat became aser, right? Because there was no shishim keneged the bliya, right? It falls in to another gdera, and in that gdera, you Baruch Hashem have shishim keneged the whole chaticha, even. Nevertheless, that chaticha remains aser. Why? That chaticha remains aser. Yeah, because we say, according to opinion of holds Efshel Lesochto is aser, that the bliyas are not completely extracted. Maybe a little bit is left over. In other words, even though I'm saving the whole kedera now and I have shishim keneged the whole piece, or at least keneged the Isur, makes no difference depending how you hold, if you hold Hanan or not, right? So I'm saying even if you have shishim keneged the whole chaticha, great, you saved your whole pot now. But that chaticha that has become once upon a time aser remains aser. It's similar, but it's not the same, to an Isur Be'ein situation. You have an Isur falling into there, Baruch Hashem, there's enough against it. I don't have to worry about this Frankfurter, this treif hot dog. Yeah, but if you identify it, you got to remove it, because bitul is not shayach, does not apply on something which is Be'ein. You see it, right? Take it out. You save the rest of the pot, as far as the tam is concerned. But the Isur Be'ein you got to remove. You can't see it? Okay, that's where the halacha of bitul beroiv applies. Or bitul. You can't see it. But what if you see it? Right? That's what we're talking about here. Obviously, we're talking about a situation where you can't see it. Otherwise, you always will have the din of bitul beroiv or bitul b'shishim, unless it's a chaticha ruyelis kabed. In situations where something is not a batel afilu be'elef. But otherwise, here we're talking about, no, I recognize it. But wait a minute. Since it fell into a gdera, and there was a lot of liquid and all sorts of foods, and there was shishim or 100 times keneged Isur, do we say that the tam, by now, with so much cooking, has been completely extracted from the Basar, the halacha is efshel l'soifta asur. We're choishish, and that's what we need to explain why it works like that. We're choishish that, no, there may be some bliya still left over. Now, I just gave you a very simplistic explanation of efshel l'soifta. That doesn't mean that that's the explanation of why we're machmer. But basically, that's what is happening. There is bliyas there. Because, theoretically, if we knew for a fact, that there was no bliyas whatsoever in the chaticha, everybody would be maskim and moide, according to the ones who hold that it's efshel l'soifta is mutter, right? That it's mutter. In other words, yeah, it all depends. Right. We have to explain this because according to those who hold that it's a separate concept, this is a separate concept, and I'm going to explain why it's separate versus not separate with Hanan. But if there would be nothing left, no remnants, if we can somehow prove it, then there would be no question over here. So part of the problem of efshel l'soifta, part of the problem is that I suspect some Isser is still remaining there. And that is why, even though I'm able to say the Hokder, the Shishim Keneged, the piece, the entire piece even, the piece itself remains Asur. It cannot become mutter. Once it has become Asur, it stays Asur.
I always thought this worry that maybe some of the Isser is precisely the reason why those who say Efshal l'soifta is Asur. Efshal l'soifta is Asur.
Right.
They say Efshal l'soifta is Asur because they worry that maybe some of this remained in the piece.
That's correct.
Because, so then I misunderstood you. I thought you were saying that according to those who say Efshal l'soifta is mutter.
Yes.
They would worry that some of the...
No, but efshel l'soifta is mutter if we know for a fact. In other words, efshel l'soifta is a problem.
Efshal l'soifta is mutter according to who?
It's a machlokes. Do we say efshel l'soifta mutter? In other words, can the piece ever become mutter?
Right.
There would be some that say efshel l'soifta is asur. It could never become mutter.
Because
no matter what.
Because they worry that there's always some belief it's impossible to complete.
Either it's impossible. That's what we're going to talk about. Either it's impossible, or we don't know.
Or we don't know.
It makes a nafkamina.
But if they knew for certain that it had been removed, let's say there is a test that you can run molecular and you can show that everything was removed, then they would have no reason to say efshal l'soifta is asur. Then they would have to accept that efshal l'soifta is mutter.
Right, you're right. Unless you hold that the efshal l'soifta is asur because it is equivalent to Hanan.
That will be the party that says Hanan. That's already no longer
right.
efshal l'soifta.
So that's what we're going to see right now. We're going to see that the big machlokes here has to do with how do we interpret the sugya of efshel l'soifta.
Let me ask you a funny question.
Sure.
So, is it hypothetically possible that someone might hold that efshel l'soifta is mutter, but is Hanan therefore asur?
No, but the other way, yes, that Hanan is mutter b'shar isurim, but efshel l'soifta is asur.
Yeah, right. Because he's not worried about Hanan; he's worried about some remnants. Really.
Exactly. The other way around, no.
So Hanan would be efshel l'soifta is asur, as a further step.
As a further step, yeah. Okay.
Why we wrote a simple Torah?
Yeah.
Piece of flesh, or vice versa.
Yeah.
If it was sheetified, if you could identify, you had to remove. Okay.
Right.
And if you could not identify the shishim, what is the difference? Why is this? Because it was what it was before. We didn't care then. Treif meat falling into a pot of kosher meat different.
Right.
Why don't we hold there?
No, we always hold shishim is helpful. The question right now is the piece itself. The piece itself that has become asur. Is it possible for that piece that it has become asur to become not asur anymore? In other words, at the time something is being cooked, if you have shishim, there's never bliyas. Because we say that the bliya, whatever is there, is canceling itself out at the first stage of cooking. But lu yitzur, in a situation where you have something becoming also because the first time around there was no shishim, take that piece and put it in the pot again with shishim or with meah, and is it possible that the issur that was there can now be cancelled out? That the tam will spread evenly as it does the first time? Because the first time around you say shishim helps because tam spreads evenly. That everybody agrees with. And that's why it depends. If
And
you
that's
remember,
a condition. 60 can only work if the town spreads.
of course,
And
we assume it spreads evenly unless it's sticking out.
And the
right?
reason, right? And the reason,
Or by Yisur
just
Dovuk.
to make it
Yeah.
explicit and verify it.
Right.
The reason why 60 only works based on that, because if all the taste concentrated in one corner of the pot, what does it help me that there's a lot of other food in the pot that doesn't be in the
Sure.
the taste that concentrated
Yeah.
there.
Right.
So I have to have it spread even to.
You sure?
So in the second pot, the problem is not that now, because it's the second pot, it no longer spreads evenly. It's because part of it was already cooked into the first piece. So with respect to the piece, it might now be a trap that traps some of the taste.
Yeah,
which
could be.
cannot-
Yeah, that's what we're going to be discussing now, just to understand this first seif, at least in Siman Kuf Vav. Before we get into the analysis, we're going to read the Mechaber and Ramah a little bit later. The maskana is, or the halacha is, the Shulchan Aruch follows the shita that there's no chanan b'shar yisurim, but somehow he's going to bring down here the Rashba that says that efshel esoichto is asur. Okay, so I'm preparing you to this dilemma. It's going to be a dilemma over here because we're going to have to try to figure out what's the difference between the two.
Between the two.
Efshel esoichto versus chanan. So what we're saying so far that Mechaber is consistent as far as chanan b'shar yisurim doesn't apply. But here, he says, Efshel esoichto is asur, which is going to present a problem in trying to figure out the difference between the two. And a second, maybe you can call minor problem, that somehow, how do you reconcile this Mechaber with the Mechaber in Basar B'cholov, right? That seems to be saying, Efshel esoichto is mutar. Okay? We're going to talk about that separately. He says it very clearly, and everybody gangs up on him, has big questions. I mean, it's not the first time that the Mechaber seems to be saying two separate things. And there's various terutzim on how to understand the Mechaber. I'm always of the opinion, try to show how there's no stira. There is no stira. It can't be that there's a stira.
Because he pulled his...
Everything.
Yeah,
he was guaranteed to the Mechaber that there would be no mikshal coming out from his halacha, coming out. It's a special schus, by the way. There's a special tefillah that we say, shouldn't be nichshal, but dvar halacha. We shouldn't make mistakes. I mean, to make a mistake, and this is going to be printed, sent out, you don't want misunderstandings, you want clarity, you don't want stiras. I mean, stira? Stira means that he didn't know what he was saying, or that it's confusing. There can't be a stira. So in yeshivas, they actually spend sometimes many, many hours and days trying to reconcile Rashi here, Rashi there, and even a Rambam, right? Because the Rambam was a Rambam, he's a Rishon. And our tradition is that Rishonim, for the most part, what they wrote, what they said was Beruach HaKodesh. And if they had, of course, you still need to have a schut that you should not make a mistake. It's a special schut not to make or that the word. You also have the problem, by the way, with Ksav Yad manuscripts, mistakes being made when things are reprinted. That there's enough of that.
Well, also the Seifrim used to call
this. Just I see it every day. It's the Mechaber Sif. Hey, I looked it up. It's Sif Dalad. A small mistake. And sometimes these mistakes make a big difference. It could be an halacha. It's missing a whole word. Asur mutar. Big word, a significant word. So anyway, we'll get to that. Mechaber obviously has a reason why he says something that appears to be the same halacha differently in Basar B'cholov as he does here. All right, so what's going on over here with the din of Efshel esoichto and the din of Chanan? The Mechaber here is bringing the Das Rashba. That's the one he quotes, and as we said in the very, very beginning of the Shir, Taaruvot, the Mechaber seems to follow quite a bit of the time. The Rashba, the Rosh, these are Rishonim that he very much follows. He obviously said the Rambam, the Rif too, but these are Rishonim that he definitely considers. He doesn't always bring him down Halacha L'Maaseh, but many times he does. So here, the Mechaber is really quoting a Rashba, and he's going against the Torah, which is very, very interesting, because the Mechaber is usually an extension of the Torah. He has appeared to be saying the Torah, right? And even though the Torah is the Rosh, it's not always the Rosh, by the way, but it's the father. The Rosh is the father of the Torah. Here, the Mechaber is very, very much very different than the Torah, which is interesting. He actually brings the Rashba, and there's actually a whole discussion going on in the Noise Kelim, the commentaries on the Torah, the Bach, the Drisha, Prisha, the Beis Yosef has a complaint on the tour, and they they say, what are you talking about? What's your complaint? I mean, it's obvious what the tour is talking about. In other words, there's a whole discussion about this tour, because there's a big difference here between the tour and the Rashba. The tour is of the opinion the Efshel Esachta is mutter altogether. There's no such a thing as Efshel Esachta is also. We hold Efshel Esachta is mutter. You look at the Gemara. I mean, the Gemara has a sugya, right? Even though that Gemara is referencing Basar b'chalav, which is of course going to make a little bit of a difference here in how you interpret the various shitas. The Gemara is talking about Basar b'chalav. Nevertheless, it's not very clear how we hold, and his maskana is we go with the poiskim that hold Efshel Esachta is mutter. He's going to tell us here, no. He's going to tell us that even though you have shishim, Niddah, he's going to tell us in different words that piece remains asur. He doesn't say the words Efshel Esachta, right? Just because he's going to tell us that the chaticha atzma asura. Why? Because the isu is not nifrat mimenu legamra. That's all he's going to say, which is very, very different than the Torah, the opposite. Okay? So the question is here, what's going on? The Mechaber is going like the Rashba as opposed to the Torah. So the Torah holds Efshel Esachta mutter. Obviously the Rashba holds Efshel Esachta is asur. But why? What's going on over here? Perhaps to make it simple, without getting too much into it, because as I said before, if you really want to get into it, you have to read a little bit into the sugya. The gist of the machloket here of what's going on is, do we say Hanan and Efshel Esachta are one of the same? In other words, do we say, if you don't say Hanan b'shar Yisurim, then we say Efshel Esachta is mutter. You follow? Do we say, and that's what the Torah holds. Basically, that's what the Torah holds. It's the same din. Okay? That's the trick. Not a trick. That's the point over here of understanding the Torah. He's basically saying it's the same din, and we hold it. There's no Hanan b'shar Yisurim.
So that's the same thing as saying Efshel Esachta is
mutter. It's mutter.
If you want to say Efshel Esachta is asur, you would have to say there's Hanan and Shar Yisurim.
Right.
That's the point.
Okay, keep that in mind. And the Rashba apparently is going to hold like those, and this is also Tosfos, seems to be going like that there are two separate dinim. You can hold Ein Hanan b'shar Yisurim, which the Rashba holds, by the way. He holds like the ones that say there's no Hanan b'shar Yisurim. But Efshel Esachta is also. Because there's two separate dinim. What the Aruch HaShulchan does is very interesting. I mean, that's why I said before, the Aruch HaShulchan is really good here. He says, what's going on in the background between the Torah and the Rashba? What's going on in the background is that they're both picking on chal. Remember the famous chal? Yeah. What was so unique about chal? Aside from how to prepare it if you want to eat it, you know what chal is, Moshe?
Yeah.
Sineh. Yeah, right? Anyway, they say it's tasty. It's a delicacy in Iran, in Persian. So there's a special way to prepare it. Why? Because you have to get all the milk out. But the Chachamim, by the way, tell us if you want to taste basar v'chalav, which is something asur, in a mutter way, you eat chal. If you are able to eat chal, you are able to taste basar v'chalav, somewhat, the flavor. Obviously, you're not having any chalav there because you've already cut it up, you've already extracted the chalav, you didn't cook it, you roasted it, so you shouldn't have any problems with leftover chalav. Nevertheless, this chal, if you didn't do it properly, prepare it properly, if it fell into a gdera, what's unique about it is even though you need shishim, remember the halacha by chal, you can include the chal in the shishim, but the chal remains asur. If there's not enough to be mevatel, the chal, right, remains asur, and therefore, if it fell into another gdera, it asurs again. So over there, the chumrah by chal is different. Wait a minute, it remains asur? What happened to Efshel Esachta? So you see what the Rashba is doing here? He's using chal as an example or as a raya to what he's saying, that it's Efshel Esachta is asur. You have enough. I mean, you have the shear. It remains asur.
So in other words, because you had 6 in the first part, Efshel Esachta was accomplished.
Yeah.
So if we want to say Efshel Esachta is mutter, then when the kal falls into the second part, you should be able to eat the kal, as he said. You don't need 60 in the pot.
No, the kal is still also. The kal remains also.
If you wanted to say Efshel Esachta is mutter,
right,
He brings us as a proof Efshal Softa is
It's Asr, right.
So if you wanted to, it would have to be the reverse. If Efshal Softa was mutter.
Right. If it was, why? Why is the Chal remaining Asr?
Right. So why is the Chal remaining Asr?
Right. Why is the Chal remaining Asr? So it's a little bit of a right to him, but everybody else is Mapitom. You know why? Over there, it's specifically Asr because it's a unique situation that the Chachamim Shavya the Chal to as a piece of Isser. They made it so, not because of Efshal Seichler, because it's like Basar b'Chalav. It resembles Basar b'Chalav.
So you're saying the Chal is Chanan?
It is like Chanan, but it's not Chanan, right? But it's like Chanan in that let's not call it even Chanan. It remained Asr b'Dirabanan. The Rabbanan said that the Chal remains Asr. Now, the Rashba is learning that Isser of Chal, that it remains Asr, because Ef Shel Estoichtoi means what? It is still possible some milk remained inside.
Now, is he passing Ishal Softa is the Rabbanan or the Ishal Softa is Asr the Rabbanan or the Raisa? Because he just said that that the ones who say
that's a machlokes. That's a good question. There's a machlokes in how to understand that, and it's going to be a nafkamina. That's a good question. There's going to be a nafkamina in how you understand Efshal Seichtoi, based on how the Beis Yosef explains the Rashba. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about that too. Yeah. It's going to make a difference. I don't want to skip around too much. So anyway, so that's how he builds up at least his case of Efshal Seichtoi by basing it on Chal, and you see it remains also there. And why does it remain also? What could be the reason he remains also? It's because obviously there's blias. I mean, otherwise why would the Chacham make it also? It says, what do you mean? The Chacham made it specifically also because as an exception, okay? Because it's like Basar b'Chalav. There's various explanations of why that's unique, of why it remains so. But the Chacham made that Chal remain also because of what it is, because it has the Chal of it. So it is like Basar b'Chalav. So it's different. It's not because of Efshal Seichtoi. It's only because it's an exception.
I saw, by the way, he says Chal remains Asr according to her, because the Chal absorbed from the meat that was in the pot, which acquired the Challah from the Chal. It absorbed back into Chal.
Yeah. There's various explanations given there. Right.
I was going to ask you if it was one of the other correct.
Yeah. There was something like that. So anyway, what's going on here with Efshal Seichtoi? You have a piece of meat, as the Beis Yosef explains, as opposed to liquids that has absorbed, and since it's a piece of meat, or a gush as he calls it, that has absorbed a blia, it doesn't necessarily come out in its entirety. As opposed to, and we'll see that in the Mechaber too, the second example of Efshal Seichtoi involves liquids. If you were to have liquids, not gush, not yovesh, belach, but liquids, right? There's no shishim. The two liquids got mixed in. One is asr, one is mutter, and there's no shishim, so it has become asr. Then it again fell into another pot, or by somehow by the evet. Now you're not allowed in the vatal. Somehow more heter fell in. Guess what will happen now if you have
also
shishim?
Liquid? Is it also liquid?
Also liquid. Also liquid. At some point, that additional liquid will be medalel. It will dilute the original tam to a point where it's completely gone. So you see the difference? By liquid, it's possible that it will be completely gone, and basically everybody will be in agreement that the issue has disappeared. Efshal Seichtoi is mutar by liquid. Everybody will agree to that. Why? Because of the chemistry here, of the way it works. The tam is completely gone. We don't have the suffix that we will have by a gush absorbing. Did it lose the tam, or was the tam extracted completely or not? Now,
so here's actually not a different seers.
Right. So now let's explain a little bit the Rashba, according to the way the Beis Yosef explains. It says the Rashba says, based on the way what the Rashba says, the problem here is that we have a suffix, right? That maybe some of the tam, some of the blias are still there, right? So since it has become asr, it has become asr once, we don't release it from its isr. So the Beis Yosef has a good comment to make on that. He says, if that's the case, then why don't we just give it over to a kafela to taste? If that's your whole chashash, that it has become asr and we have a suffix, if there's still a tam there, so give it to a kafela. And let's say a kafela says that there's no tam, it says it would still be aser. And that's interesting. Why? Why would it still be aser if the kafela says that there's no tam?
So we're talking now again about savar gush, so a solid.
What's the kafela?
No, so that's what he's saying. If that's the problem that there is a suffix, why don't we just give it over to kafela? So B'Seisim elaborates a little bit more on the Rashba, that he says that it does not go back to its heter unless we knew for sure that all the time is gone.
All the time.
All the time is gone. And since that's something that's impossible for us to determine, it's impossible
Even
for us to
can't.
even with a kafela, it remains asr. Now, with this kafela, there's different explanations. Some say that, I think Rabbi Elyahu Kin says that once something becomes asr, it's becheskas iser, we can't use a kafela.
So you have to argue on the mechaber there. Because the mechaber says it doesn't help.
No,
he says you can't.
No, he's trying to explain what's the idea of why can't the kafela really work. Yeah, that's the Rabbi Elyahu Kin. Trying to explain the mechaber, what's really. So there's different explanations of why would the kafela really not work. Mechaber brings it up, and he just says, nah, it became asr. He doesn't really go into as to, well, but why? After all, don't we use kafela all over the place? So Rabbi Elyahu Kin explains, I think he says, he's the one that says, once something has become asr, then we don't rely on the kafela. It's become asr. When you don't know something is asr or not, that's different.
It's beheskes mutter.
Right. Now it's beheskes us. It's asr. You want to know if it became mutter? We don't use a kafela for that. And interesting, it's a Rabbi Elyahu Kin.
It's a good point.
It's a good point. And he said that before in another halacha, I think.
Because here the kfela is together with the hazaka.
Right.
That it's head. But over here the kfela is against the hazaka.
Right.
Different story.
Now, so the problem of Efshel Sechta, according to the Rashba, is basically that once something has become asr, we don't know for sure that next time the tam will be mispashet b'shoveh. It will be, in other words, it will be equally dissipated all over. We suspect that a little bit might still remain, and that's why it remains asr. As opposed to lach, that we just said with liquids, it completely is gone. If two liquids mix up, even though it first became asr, it eventually, at some point, is going to completely disappear. So that's the difference between lach and gush that we're going to see in the words of the mechaber. Now, the nafkamina that I mentioned earlier that there would be here, the nafkamina between how the Beis Yosef learns it, or how he explains Efshel Sechta and the Rashba is as follows. The Rashba says that something has become asr. Something has become asr, it doesn't easily become mutter. We're choishish here that there's something left over. So there's a suffix, a real suffix, if something has if there is any blias that are remain there. Yeah. The Mechaber seems to be saying that we're not sure if the tam mispashet b'shaveh or not. And because of that, it's a gzeira d'Rabbanan. Remember you asked me before? Now, he doesn't say the word gzeira d'Rabbanan. That's the way the Achronim explain. In other words, there's two ways of looking at it. Does it remain a suffix? It's a real suffix. Yeah? Or is it just a gzeira d'Rabbanan because we're not sure completely, and because of that the Chachamim made it asr. In other words, there's a slight difference here, but this slight difference makes a big difference. I'll tell you where it makes a difference. There's an interesting question that has come up in Halacha elsewhere. What happens if you cooked onions with meat? The onions become fleshik, right? Later on you took these onions and you cooked them in water. Can you now eat the onions with milichiks?
You're assuming there was 60 in the water against
Yeah,
the original.
of course. Yeah, because by the time it was cooked in the water, maybe the water extracted all the meat from the onion or from potatoes or whatever it is that you're cooking. Interesting, no? It's similar to what we're talking about here. Efshel Seichtoi.
But if it was cooked.
Yeah, we're talking about something that you recooked.
No, but if you cook.
It was boleya once. Now you cooked it again. That's the question of Efshel Seichtoi. Will the water extract all the blias? You have shishim, like Ilan said. That's not a problem. You definitely have the right amount of water. Will it take out all the flavor of the meat, the little meat flavor that the onions have?
You said possible issue.
Yeah.
One, would it absorb throughout everything?
Yeah.
So why don't we say that this fake make it water?
How would it be a svek sveka?
You have two different. one,
Right.
you don't know if there's any to absorb.
Right.
And two, you don't know.
It's the same kind of suffix. We will learn it later on with Sveika that it has to be two independent Sveikas. This one really is almost one and the same. If it's spread,
Yeah,
or if it
not
remains.
exactly.
If it stays, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a good idea, good suggestion to use Sveika. We sometimes rely on Sveika, but in this case, I'm almost sure. I mean, it's the same kind. Because if you say it's spread, that means it's not there. If it's not there, it's because it's spread. See what I mean?
No.
Yeah. So anyway, this question is actually brought down Halacha l'maisa. If this ever happens, I mean, and a lot of Achronim hold, yes, Efshel Soichta is mutter. The Taz and the Shach say that the only time Efshel Soichta is a problem is when an Isser is involved. Basar is not an Isser. Basar is a heter. Right? If we hold it's a chumrah, we're machmir. There's no reason to be machmir. If it's a real suffix, it's something else. It's a suffix. Maybe we have some basar left. Depends. Why do you? What's going on? Is it a chumrah, more of a chumrah that because we're not sure, or we know? We don't know if the isser is went all over the place and some remained. So by heter, by basar, you don't have to be machmir. There is a Magen Avram in Hilchos Pesach that talks, I think, about olives. Somebody cooked olives with chometz before Pesach, and then cooked it again in water.
Also
before Pesach, right? Is the chometz gone?
Can you now use these olives?
Yeah. I think he says yes. No, it was everything was chametz before Pesach. He cooked it with vinegar or whatever it was, but later on recooked the same olives in water. Do we say the chametz is gone? Chametz before Pesach is not a sur; it's a heter. You see, so there's a So that would be the question. Some are machmir, I think, in this kind of situation, but I think the Shach, the Taz, pretty much say it would be okay if you knew for sure. Because Efshel Sochta, we're not makpid, but it's by heter. It's only heter. It's only by isur that it would be a problem. There's another question of Efshel Sochta by the Rabbanan, by isur the Rabbanan. Do we say Efshel Sochta by the Rabbanan? Interesting question. What would you say? So I think the Chochmas Adam brings down that it all depends on how you hold with Hanan b'derabbanan, b'isur d'Rabbanan. Remember, there's also big machloket. Do we say Hanan
b'shar
isurim in the Rabbanan isurim?
Well, if you say Hanan,
Right.
Hanan b'shar isurim is the Rabbanan anyway.
Right.
So do you make a fence around the fence?
Yeah. Well, that's the question. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the question, because those that say Hanan b'shar isurim is not really a fence, especially according to the pre.
No, if you say it like
Right.
Shach, Hanan b'shar isurim is the Rabbanan.
Right.
Like the Shach, he says the Rabbanan. So if Hanan b'shar isurim is the Rabbanan, it's a fence. Doraisa, there's no Hanan here.
Oh, you're saying it's midrabanan? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
Hanan b'shar isurim is the Rabbanan. Doraisa, there's no Hanan.
Right. So it's a Rabbanan. Yeah.
That's a Rabbanan.
Right. That's the question. Right. Should we be that machmir?
So that's the whole. That's
Yeah. So some say Hanan be'isur derabanan too, that there is Hanan be'isur in derabanan, and they would hold that possibly Efshel Soichta is also aser. Those that don't hold the shita that there is Hanan be'isurim derabanan, you don't say Hanan be'isurim derabanan, just like you don't say Hanan in Caleb, right? And a lot of places who hold there's no Hanan in Lach even. In Lach there's no Hanan, right? And that's very important by a Hefse Meruba situation. Yeah, by Hefse Meruba at least you use that, right? Yeah, the Ramah talks about it, sure. So therefore, those that hold that there's no Hanan, so there's no question that Efshel Soichta is mutter. So anyway, I saw brought down Kapachaim holds that we're not machmir b'isur d'Rabbanan. As it is, there's not necessarily Hanan b'shar isur and b'isur d'Rabbanan. So there's no problem. There's no problem of Efshel Sochtoi b'Rabbanan.
So if there's no problem with Efshel Sochtoi b'Rabbanan, how can there be Hanan?
No. So even if you held Hanan, you don't have to worry about Efshel Sochtoi.
Yeah,
interesting.
But according to him, how
remember the two separate
the Rabbanan, Shar Isurim, the Rabbanan, there is no Efshel Sochtoi.
Efshel Sochtoi, remember, is going to be a separate concept that the piece itself can become mutter again.
I thought we said before that you can only hold Hanan if you hold.
No, that's the question. That's the question of that's the Mekor. The Mekor of the Halacha. Do we say there are two separate dinim?
So if you say this, then we don't say that it's
right.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. Yes. Now, that's the tour. The tour is saying, what are you guys talking about? Well, what's the question over here? We hold there's no Hanan. Basar b'cholav, yes, but not b'shar yisurim. So what's the question of Efshel Asayta here? Now, let's maybe just go through the seif inside, and then we'll just discuss one more point. So, chaticha shebola isur. It absorbed an isur. Ve'em bo shishim levatloi. It doesn't have 6. It is mevatl shenaflo lekdeira. It fell into Gdera. It will only answer according to how much it absorbed. Together with the Chaticha, Atzma, Shishim Keneged Isur Abalua Bo, Mutter Masha Beder, what's in the Gdera is Mutter. So he holds Chanan B'Shar Yisurim is Mutter. Because he's right from this. He didn't tell us of Shalasafta, yes. He's telling us Chanan B'Shar Yisurim is Mutter because
there is no
Eino Seres Ela Lefi Cheshbon Isur Sheba.
Right, so there is no Chanan B'Shar Yisurim.
Right, right. I'm sorry, yeah. There's no Chanan. Right? And then he adds, אבל החתיכה עצמה אסורה. לפי שאיסר שבו אינו נפלט ממנו לגמרי. He gives a partial explanation here, that the isser in it is not completely extracted. And that's, of course, the Rashba, based on Tosfos, right? Also, that they're two separate dinim. V'chein ikar, we find in parentheses, v'chein ikar, u'deloi kemo shekosav le'eil, not like he wrote before in Siman Tzadik Beis, in Basar b'cholav.
Who's responsible for these things?
The Ramah.
The Ramah.
The af oisa chaticha muteres. Okay, so before we go to that apparent stira, let's finish the sig. Masha'en kemedover anivlal v'nimoyach, something which is liquid, soft, mixed, she'im nofal dam, as an example, blood, so we have liquid with liquid, and became also because it's very, very little. There's very little voitus, so there's more dam, or there's not enough to be mevatel the dam, somehow b'di'evet, of course, you cannot be mevatel this or the somehow later, nisra b'deroitiv shel heter, ad sheyesh bo b'em kuloi, shishim mevatel dam, altogether the 6 mevatel dam, kuloi, so here we see the opposite. You got more heter now to cancel out the isser. Even the isser is mutter now. It's all gone. Why? Because it's liquid. Now the Ramah adds, his main point here is only about really Chanan, because he agrees with the Mechaber about Efshel Aseichto. So since we hold the only difference would be Ela Inyan Zed the Imanesa Kvar who Dover Yovesh Shishim Kenegdoi Achaticha Neseres Tchilo Nisheres Bisura Betzorech Laasiro Misham Imakiro, and you have to remove it from there if you see it. Vimeno Makiro, but obviously if you do not recognize it, Betela, it's bottle. Imeno Chaticha Ruyel Eskabed, as we said, unless it's a Chaticha Ruyel Eskabed. Vimu dover lach, akol mutar, me'achad de'iko shishim negem mashenesu tchila. V'ayin le'el, Siman Tzadik Beis.
What's the difference here between the Ramah?
Oh, very good question. It seems to, what is the Ramah saying any different than the Mechaber? Yeah, I saw somebody asking that question. Yeah, what is he adding over here? He says, according to us, that's why I made sure to say that the main point that the Ramah is really saying, even though he's throwing a lot of words at you, all right, he's basically re-quoting the whole thing and telling us that the only chilak is, his main point is, we hold Chanan B'Shar Yisurim, okay? So since we hold Chanan B'Shar Yisurim, the main nekuda over here, therefore, would be that imanesa kvar hu dover yovesh v'yeshishim kenegdoi, right? Achaticha neseres tchila nisheres b'isura. In other words, that ultimately you would need shishim keneged the whole chaticha versus just the isur. That's all.
The Mechaber only needs 60.
So very good observation on your part that what is he saying different than the Mechaber? The Mechaber also agrees with him that the chaticha remains asur. That if it's lach, it's not a problem. I mean, what is he saying? But that's what you have to.
So that's the point. The point is the Mechaber requires 60 against the Isser Alua. The Ramah requires 60 against the whole.
The whole thing. That's the only difference. That's only. But you're right. Very good observation. If you read the Ramah, what is he saying different than the Mechaber? He's basically he's saying a lot more than maybe he needed to, right? And that's what throws people off, as it appears they're the same. But his main point is the first few words, that since we hold that there's Chanan b'Shar Yisurin, the whole Chaticha becomes Nevela, and you would need Shishim Kenegdoi. And still, the Chaticha, of course, will remain also, like the Mechaber says. Yeah,
now,
that's it.
with respect to the Var law,
Yeah.
it seems to me that the Lemur is also requiring Taaruvos of Heter Lach.
Yeah, because...
And then the whole Taaruvos becomes...
Yeah, here he didn't really discuss, he didn't really say if he did or not.
Uh-huh.
He didn't really say, do you need or not? Yeah, he just says...
Let's say according to him...
Yeah, you would, because the main point is at the end, do you have Shishim Kineged the Isur becomes Mutter, even though it became Asur. But you're right, I mean, that's, even if you hold Lach Belach Hanan, I mean, obviously, that's the point here. Even if you were to say Lach Belach Hanan, because that was not enough, in the end, it was Nisrabe, because it was Nisrabe, it was an increased, but the whole thing becomes Mutter.
It could be that the amount of additional heter the Mechaber requires is smaller than the volume of additional that the Ramah requires. Because the Ramah would require 60 against
always,
the
always,
combination.
always, yes.
In the liquid.
If you hold Chanan B'Shar Yisurim in liquid too, yes, you're right.
So the Ramah,
you're right.
He is holding Chanan B'Shar Yisurim. At first I thought he wasn't. It seems now to me that he is holding Chanan B'Shar Yisurim even by liquids.
In other words, even if you hold, which a lot of them do, right? But since not everybody does, we can be lenient to have some meruba, right? So here, but he says the din would be different, that you wouldn't say Efshel Seichta. That's his main point. You wouldn't say Efshel Seichta. And everything will become mutter, even though it became Asr first. You didn't have enough. It became Asr.
To read your sentence,
Right.
you're saying correctly.
Forget about Hanan.
I'm saying Isha L'Safto is Asr.
Efshel Seichta, yeah.
It's Asr.
In other words, forget about Hanan. The fact is you had enough dam. You did not have enough to mevatel the dam. And now you do have enough. So you don't say Efshel Seichta. In other words, you don't say Efshel Seichta, by lach, because it's completely gone. Liquid and liquid eventually dissipates, as opposed to davar gush. Okay, so real quickly, what do we have? We have a mechaber that is different in Basar b'Cholov this year. And sometimes it's a challenge. I like these challenges. Try to figure out what did the mechaber really mean there. But can we really outthink or outsmart the Shach and the Taz? I say to myself, should I really try? The Shach and Taz already speak about it. Rabbi Elyahu speaks. I think the Gross speaks about it. Everybody speaks about it. Everybody. You have here a Ber Hagoyla even. Another one. Everybody has the simple explanation that the Aruch HaShulchan brings in. I think the Taz goes along too. The Mechaber, maybe let's just read it inside. It pays, because like this. If you ever want to look it up, it's in Tzadik Daled. No, sorry, Tzadik Beis. Tzadik Beis Daled. Lo amru chaticha asur nas tzavela lo b'basar b'cholav, lo b'shar yisurim. Kigon kazayis chelev. Over there, even though it's basar b'cholav, it's kazayis chelev, a fat shenivla b'chaticha. It's absorbed in the chaticha ve'em bo shishin levatlo ve'nesro, right? It became also b'chaka bishlo macheros. Ein tzorcha lo shishin keneged kazayis chelev. All you need is shishim keneged the chelev that is absorbed, right? Ve'az afilu chaticha atzmo chozer l'shiyos muteres. Wow! Exact opposite. It's not even vague. It's clearly the opposite halacha over here. So look at the Aruch HaShulchan, and the Taz seems to be saying that. Over here, he's quoting the Tur, and that's the halacha in the Tur. And here, he's going with the Rashba. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not happy with that explanation. Why would he do that? And the halacha is the same everywhere. Okay? Some say, here he's telling us the din midaraisa. Here's the din midaraisa basar b'cholav, that is, you say Efshel Seichta is okay, midaraisa. Efshel Seichta is fine. It's gone. It's only the Rabbanan.
But he's talking about chelev.
Yeah, but you say here, he's telling us the din of the raisa legabe Efshel Seichta. The really Efshel Seichta is mutter.
By Shar Yisurim.
Bashar Yisurim, yeah. Right, Bashar Yisurim.
So what does that have to do with Basar b'cholav?
Because he's talking about Chanan Bashar Yisurim.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying something else.
Yeah.
He said here, he's talking about, it's about Basar b'cholav.
Right.
So he's saying it's more. What does it have to do with Basar b'cholav? Maybe he thinks maybe he's to mean chalav, not even?
No, it's Chelev.
Oh, you mean just in that chapter?
That's right, right.
Uh-huh.
And here it's a Derabana. He's telling us the din Derabana. You're right that Efshel Seichta, it would be the piece would go back to become mutter. But Rashba holds that it's Asr, but it's an Isra Midrabana. In other words, here's the din Midrabana. Others say that he's talking about min b'minoi here, and here is min b'she'eno minoi. Chelev is min b'minoi, so it's more lenient, min b'she'eno. Various explanations, and if you have the time, you try to figure out what he's trying to do. It's obvious that the halacha is very different in Basar v'chalav, and I would try to look into it a little bit more as to why he said that. But I think the point he's trying to make is that in reality, the din is that it would go back to be mutter. Why? Because it all depends on how you learn the din of Hanan and Nefshel Seichtoi, if it's the same din or not.
Also,
1 second. So this is what I'm thinking. I think this may have a little bit to do with interpreting the whole din of Nefshel Seichtoi. Because Lemaisa, if you think about it, the din of the Gemara is only by Basar b'chalav. So Nefshel Seichtoi appears to be a separate din. There are those who would consider Nefshel Seichtoi like shatnez. If you're able to remove the wool from the linen completely, the wool and the linen become mutter. All right? But if you hold the din of Nefshel Seichtoi is like a Hanan, or in other words, it's really the same kind of din or more, then it would remain always Asr. Okay? So, it could be, that the Mechaber is alluding to that. He's telling us that the Maisa, and if you were able to get out everything, the piece would go back. It's just like shatnez. It's a separate din than Hanan. And here he's telling us, but the Rashba has a different understanding of Nefshel Seichtoi. Not only is it a different din, it's a din in Hagolas Oichlin. Hagalat Ochlin. Do we actually say that food can have Hagala? Can you extract everything that got absorbed into it, just like you can extract it from a cake when you make Hagala to it? Because that's where the Rashba is coming from. He says, I have no problem with Nefshel Seichtoi by the Gemara, because that's Basar b'chalav issues. It's a separate idea over there. With Basar b'chalav, of course, because you tie it with Hanan. But there's another kind of Basar, there's another kind of Nefshel Seichtoi that the Gemara is not necessarily talking about, and that's Hagolas Oichlin. So that's how, if you have the Aruch HaShulchan, I recommend, that's where he takes it apart and analyzes the Rashba and saying that the Rashba was concerned that there's no Hagala to Oichlin, and because of that, maybe something still remains, and it's a Chumrah of sorts. So here the Mechaber is Machmir based on that understanding, Halacha Lemaised, but in reality, like the Bera Goyla says, here he's telling us the actual din, that Nefshel Seichtoi does not apply, it's not a problem, and it would be mutter, because there's no Hanan. In other words, if there's no Hanan, there's no din of Nefshel Seichtoi. In other words, if you hold there's no Hanan, why should there be a din or why should there be a problem of Nefshel Seichtoi?
Why would he one time hold this and the other time hold this? That doesn't make sense.
No, that's the problem, right? That's where the Achronim have a problem here with why he's different. He makes a differentiation.
In both cases, we have no Hanan.
Yeah, in both cases we have no Hanan.
So in both cases, he should come to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
He's not writing an academic treatise on different possibilities of understanding.
Right.
He's giving halacha lemaisa here.
Yeah. Here, lemaisa in Hilchos Taaruvos, he was machmer. If there is an iser, ultimately we're machmer, and we're machmer because of what the Rashba says. Because he says himself. And he doesn't even say that it's a suffix.
So
he makes that assumption that it's not, and because it makes that assumption, he's basing himself on that purely on the Rashba, that there's no complete Hagala Loichlin. Lu Yitzurah there was, we knew for sure that it would be mutter, and that's what he says here in Basar b'chalav. Lu Yitzurah it was. There's no reason to say it remains also because there's no Hanan. Why should Nefshel Seichtoi be any different? But here, quoting the Rashba, apparently he's machmir. In other words, that it's not niflat mimenu legamra for a reason that ein hagala loichlin. In other words, there's no complete.
But wouldn't the same reason apply by Chelev Basar b'chalav chapter Chelev?
Right.
Same reason.
Right. That's the question. The question is why does he make the differentiation? But and I was adding that it could be that it has to do with a little bit of how you interpret Nefshel Seichtoi. In other words, is it two separate dinim? Or is it one or the same?
But he should be doing it one way one time,
exactly.
And the other way the other time.
But maybe but the Mechaber has a record that several times he sometimes considers the other Shita at a later time. He does consider it.
But he doesn't.
Here,
like the other
right here, it was very, very problematic because it's the exact same halacha with two separate,
That's the point.
decisions. Right? That's what made it a little bit more difficult. But I definitely feel that Mechaber is definitely considering the Torah, definitely considering those who hold that it's one of the same. It's the same halacha. Why should you make a differentiation too? You see? But if you say that it's two halachas, two concepts, you can say there's no Hanan and still say Efshel Asechta Asar.
But that's not what he's saying. He's saying Efshel Asechta is mutter and Asar on the same thing. It's not got nothing to do with Hanan.
Right.
In both cases, he says there is no
But it
Hanan.
depends how you learn Efshel Asechta. What is Efshel Asechta?
But he should be learning it the same way.
That's why they have a question. That's why the great Achronim like the Shach and Taz.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Right. You're giving us background information. I'm thinking that you're trying to explain why he does it the other way.
I'm trying to be having learned the Mechaber a little bit and having seen how he does it, and trying to avoid any indication that there's steers chas v'shalom the Mechaber. The way I see it is that he has done it in the past. He takes into account, as he does sometimes. He says it clearly, yesh v'yesh in the same seif. Then things are obvious and clear to us when he tells us yesh oisim, yesh matirim, or yesh oimrim this. Then things are so easy to us. You don't have to.
But he's not saying yesh.
Then you still have to figure out how he holds. So you need a klal. He holds like the second one. Here the problem is he didn't do that, and it's Basar b'cholam, and it's the same kind of.
Neither cases he has yesh.
Nevertheless, it could be right. Tzorchiyun. It's still, but it could be that he takes into consideration the other interpretation of Efshel Asechta. According to the Torah, it's all one of the same kind of a din. So therefore, there's no reason to say Efshel Asechta is a problem.
Let me tell you what bothers me what you're saying.
Right.
What bothers me what you're saying is that your explanation is explaining how he comes to contradict him. If you're right, you're explaining how he comes to contradict himself. It doesn't take away from the contradiction, which is your intention. Your intention is to show it doesn't contradict himself. You're explaining how he arrives at contradiction.
He definitely appears so.
Here he does take something into consideration.
Yeah.
There he doesn't take it into consideration. Okay, so the outcome is that there he didn't take it into consideration. He pastors like this.
Yeah.
Here he does take it into consideration.
Remember, in Basar b'cholam he told us the din of Hanan. Okay, he told us that's where the focus was in that halacha, and that's the if. Here, the chidush is Efshel Asechta. In other words, we already, even though he brings Hanan b'shar yisurim his mutter here, his main focus is Efshel Asechta because he's going to talk about davar lach as opposed to davar lach. But there, the main focus was Hanan.
But he made a statement regarding things.
That's the problem.
So the truth is, he shouldn't paskin two different ways regarding
obviously.
no matter what the context is.
But what did he do? He wanted us to learn.
No, but I wanted to point out something.
He wanted us to see all the shita. Yeah.
Here he actually gives reason over this.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
Maybe that's a...
No, you're right. That's what I said. Here he gives a little bit of an explanation as what the issue is. And that issue has to do with the Rashba. The Rashba's whole logic that it's a problem. You can't really say it. Not necessarily everybody agrees with him, right? But apparently everybody went along with this. Everybody went along with this Efshel Asechta here. The Ramah doesn't argue, right? Because it can't possibly be a separate din altogether, even though for the Gemara it doesn't appear to be. The Gemara, it does appear to be one of the same.
You mean a separate din between Hanan and Efshel Asechta?
Yeah. It's a question of the Rashba. What do you think? I mean, if you learn the Gemara line by line, word by word, you come to the conclusion, it really appears more likely that it's the same din. So it could be the Rashba saying, you know why? Over there, I may agree that it's the same thing because it's Basar b'cholav. So therefore, but I have a different concept of Efshel Asechta that applies, that has nothing to do with that Gemara. See, and even though the Beis Yosef didn't say, even though the Mechaber didn't say, hey, that's why you have to look at the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef does explain, and you're right, he did add a few words of clarification. So over there, he told us the Ikar Adin, based like the tour, based on what the halacha really is, that it's not a really problem. Here we're machmir because of a Rashba. Why didn't he tell us that? Oh, it's a kasha. Why should he tell us that differently there than here? But I really think that the Chaber does that sometimes in taking into consideration another Rishon, and he told us there was a similar situation here with Tzir. Remember Tzir and Chometz? We learned about Kavush.
Right.
Chometz also, the Mechaber was very different. And he talks about his own. That we have at least an advantage of, that he explains himself in one of the chuvas that somebody asked him, why did you write it differently? And he had a good explanation for it, even though the explanation would not satisfy you. Well, why did you do it anyway, you would say, right? Because you
No, the question is this: if
Right.
I come to try to
Right.
follow the mechaber with, I have a chaticha that was infected with an iser,
Right.
and I have 60 against the iser, including the chaticha in the pot.
Okay.
And now I want to determine: do I eat the chaticha or not? If I go according to tzadik bey, I do. If I go according to vav, I don't. So the question is, what does he want from me?
Yeah.
Does he want me to eat it or does he not want me to?
Yeah.
Can I rely on tzadik base and says I'll eat it? Or do I have to go with kuf vav and say I won't eat it?
go
If I
with
have to go with kuf vav, why doesn't he have to go with kuf vav and tzadik base?
Yeah, you go with kuvav like all the
Then
places
why
tell
doesn't he
us.
have to go with kuf vav and
Yeah.
tzadik base?
There he was telling us in the way it is written there, and it's written differently than it is here. It's more in a hypothetical situation. He's not telling us the halacha as he's telling us over here. If you read,
Chaticha muter?
yeah, over there he says the chaticha would be, right? It would go back to being muteras. Yeah,
No, he said expressly the
Yeah.
chaticha is muter.
Yeah.
It's not hypothetical.
right. No, it's
The
like the lashon is more hypothetical.
How's that?
Right, he says, אבל לא משנה כגון חד שנים לו בחתיכה ואין בו שישים דבר בנס ובחר כרבי שלם אחרת, אין זוכר שישים כדי כזייס חלב, ואז אפילו חתיכה עצמו
It's
חוזר...
even worse. I feel like he doesn't want to.
Right.
Even a piece of butter.
Yeah, but he's referring to a situation which is not the Basar b'cholov situation.
Exactly, it's not.
Because he's making a distinction between Hanan, right, in Basar b'cholov and Shari Surah. It's just that, you're right, it's a question as to why he mentions that over there. Bechlal, he shouldn't have even have mentioned it. He shouldn't even have mentioned it. It has nothing to do with Basar
He
b'cholov.
should have also.
He shouldn't have mentioned that. Yeah, why does he mention it? Because that's the halacha in the Torah, and that's the halacha by Efshel Seichtoi. And that's how he holds. Here, apparently, maybe that's why he explains himself over here, as opposed to leaving it blank completely. You know, Eino niflat mimeno legamra. There's something that may still be left over, and that's why we were machmir. Yeah, but remember the leniency that we had. That's only by Isser, but by Heter, we have the various Achronim that say potatoes, onions that you've recooked in water. It could be by then that it's no longer fleishiks. Interesting. It's a very interesting halacha. Yeah, completely gone. In other words, because we wouldn't be machmir. Yeah, well, in a sense, yeah, the time is gone because we're not machmir on heter.
Because by an Isser, you want to revert it into a heter.
Yeah, because it's a chumrah. Apparently, all it is really a chumrah. We're not machmir by heter. Okay, we'll stop here.